Hello everyone and welcome back to Solo's Podcast, or welcome to Solo's Podcast, and welcome to another laid back video because I need a break from posting reviews. That's a joke, I love doing reviews, but they do require me to use more than one brain cell, and currently we have like 0.5 available. So without further ado, let's get into today's video. So I think I've talked about this at some point or like mentioned it off the record or something, but I am a massive manga and anime fan. I've watched a ton, I've read a ton, I will continue to watch and read a ton, and I've also started collecting manga a while back. Here's the thing that people don't tell you when you're new to getting into manga. There's a lot, and series are long, and you will probably never be done. So this is a warning for everyone who hasn't yet started collecting manga. The ones who know. So there's a lot we have here. I wanted to show you guys all the manga and anime, well not anime, but all the manga that I have collected in this room right now. And to start things off and to like ease into it, I thought I could talk first about my light novels, which is... it's not necessarily a genre of literature, but it's something that Japanese artists call books that are of lighter literature, aka they're easier to consume than, say, literary fiction or something along those lines. And I only have a few of those, so that's why I'm showing them first. Don't get fooled by how few volumes I'm holding up right now. One of them is a very long series and I have like 17. So I didn't know how to hold them into the camera, so we're doing it like this. So first of all, we have the first volume of Adachi and Shimamura. It's really cute. It's a girls' love light novel, and the one thing that all light novels have, no matter how big they are, no matter what kind of genre we're talking about, they will always have some form of illustration within the actual text. So that's really cool, because sometimes it just helps you visualize the characters a bit more. Adachi and Shimamura is basically just a slice of life, girls' love situation. They're both in school. One of them usually always skips school and the other one doesn't, and they just find together, and they're cute, they're adorable, and I love them very much. I don't know how many volumes there are, and I don't know if the series is finished. I'm pretty sure there's at least more than 7. This is a common occurrence. Don't even worry about it. But that's this one. Another one that I have, which is one that I actually haven't read yet, is The Executioner and Her Way of Life. This is a girls' love fantasy series, and at the beginning, by the way, you usually always have colorful illustrations, and within the text you will have black and white ones. I've watched the anime for this one, and I know that it's about an isekai, which basically means a character gets transported from our world into a fantasy world. But the twist for this isekai series, I would say, is that the people living in that fantasy world that people keep getting isekai'd into have started catching on to the fact that there's people from a strange world coming into theirs, and they don't like that because more often than not, people who get isekai'd, there's this trend that they will be the ones that are the most powerful when it comes, for example, to magic users. And the people in that fantasy world have caught on to the fact that this is pretty dangerous for their world and their people, and so they have started developing this special task force that is tasked with finding people who have come from our world into this fantasy world and killing them. That's why it's called The Executioner, because this is her, this is my baby, this is my darling. However, she finds herself tasked with killing a person who has been isekai'd from our world into this fantasy world, but instead of being able to kill her, somehow the death does not stick. And so she finds out that this person, this other woman, is able to reincarnate herself over and over again. And so what they're doing is they're basically engaging on this road trip where they're trying to find out how to actively kill the other person in this dynamic, the person who's coming from our world into the fantasy world. It's fantastic. I love the anime really, really, really much, and I'm so excited to get into this series. Women. That's all I have to say. Okay, women. Thank you. I also don't know how many volumes there are, but I know there's more than 5. Again, common occurrence. And now we're getting to the 2 that are complete, but I don't have all the volumes yet, and one of those is a tragedy because we have Kieli and I have volumes 1 and 3. I read the first volume. I haven't read the other ones yet because, again, I only have the second one, but the reason I'm calling this a tragedy is because these are stunning, in my opinion. I love them very much, and I have not been able to find the other volumes. It's impossible. Like, you might be able to get them if you are willing to pay hundreds of euros for some of these editions. Especially the second one, for some ungodly reason that I don't understand. I really want to read this story. And I want to own them physically, but I can't, apparently, and it's making me very sad. But basically, the first one, like the one that I know anything about, is about this girl. Her name is Kieli, and she is able to see ghosts. And she partners up with this man called Harvey, who is unable to die because he was basically made into this kind of super soldier during a war that's also, it's been a few years in that world. And together they travel and they try to lay to rest the soul or the spirit of a, I think, sergeant, if I remember that correctly, who has been left behind in an old radio. This is why there's a radio on here. And the series is, like, the first volume is incredible. I love it. And I really want to continue, but I have not been able to find these. So if you, for some reason, if you're watching this video and you know about this series, and you know any place where I could get my hands on the light novels, I am begging you to tell me because I want it so bad. I've been stuck on volume 1 and 3 for, I think, 5 years now. Like, I'm not kidding. It's bad, okay? Legitimately, I've been unable to find these, and it's making me go insane. But yeah, that's Kieli. I highly recommend the story itself. I know that there's also a manga. I don't think there's an anime adaptation. I recommend the story. It's fantastic. I really enjoy it. Not being able to find the light novel is going to drive me into an early grave, but that's just me. Okay, fantastic. And the last one is one, I don't have all the volumes yet because there is, I think, 29. Again, this is a common occurrence with light novels and manga. It's just, if you get into this hobby, make sure you have space. Because I didn't. And look where it got me. But the one that I'm talking about is Spice and Wolf. This is a, like, medieval-esque fantasy setting, and it's about this wolf goddess called Horo, or Holo, that's her, I love her very much, who usually lives in a village that she kind of, like, helps with the harvesting because she's supposed to make sure that the wheat is growing strong. But the village has started to find out about this absolutely revolutionary thing called, progress. And so now, Holo has the daunting opinion that they don't need her anymore because they don't need the blessing of a god. They're handling things fine on their own. And so she now wants to return home. She wants to return home to the north where she originally came from. And in order to get there, she asks a merchant by the name of Kraft Lawrence for help because he is used to traveling the country, especially in a human form, because she does have a human form, as you can see, but, you know, she has ears, she also has a tail, because she's actually a wolf goddess, and it's a little bit hard for her to travel with a lot of humans around, right? So she asks for his help and they fall in love. That's like the main gist of it, but there are so many like side stories they get onto, and because the main story, the framing of the story is so large and vast, they have the opportunity of basically going anywhere with it, you know, because they have to travel from one place to a very remote place that a lot of people have never been able to access before. So it's fantastic. It's one of my favorite love stories. Like, you know when you say that some straights have rights, this is my male-female pairing that I am willing to go down for. I love them so much. I just look at my children. I love them incredibly much. I adore these. So there's also an anime for this, and this is so exciting, we're getting a new season, next season, which starts, I think, in Oh my god, I think it starts in like a few weeks. I'm so excited. You have to know, the first anime, like, there's over 20 volumes of the light novel, and there is exactly 2 anime seasons so far. One of them 24 episodes, the other one 12 episodes, so it's not a lot of episodes. And they have adapted volumes 1 through 4, and they have left out some of the things happening in volume 3 because they didn't have the space to adapt everything. I own more volumes than the anime could adapt. And it's been over 12 years and we finally get a new season. No one is entirely sure if it's a remake or if it's like starting off where season 2 ended, but I am so excited. So if you want to get into this, I do recommend starting with the anime because apart from the fact that it's really short, like the original one that is, it's very faithful to the source material if you don't want to start collecting light novels like I do, which I understand. There's a lot. Good luck. But anyway, yes, I love Spice and Wolf. It is one of my favorite, like, historical fantasy romance situations, and I highly recommend it to anyone who found this to be somewhat interesting. So, yes, that's this one. And that's all my light novels done, actually, so hooray! Let's get into the manga. So, I've decided to split this into 4 categories, basically, because we need some sort of system here. Category number 1 is the manga series that are complete that I also own entirely. There's not that many actually because a lot of them are long and or not finished yet. Number 2 is the why do I keep saying anime? The manga series that are complete but that I don't own yet completely, which means I still have to buy some of the volumes, and depending how long they are, I have to buy a lot more. Category number 3 is the standalones, so I think there's one where it's just 2 volumes that technically belong together. Those are all the ones that I just got because they sounded funny, and they're done in 1 volume, so if you feel like jumping into manga, I recommend starting with one of these instead of some of the long-ass series I'm going to be talking about in a second. And the 4th and biggest category are the manga series that are not yet complete and that I also don't own completely because I'm missing at least 1 or 2 volumes to catch up to where we are currently at. Let's just begin. Okay, so quick disclaimer as well, again, like with the light novels, I'm only going to be holding up like a few of them because some of these are very, very long, and I did not want to get all of them off my shelves, okay? Like, let's not do that. So let's just start with the standalones, actually. But you know what? That's a good idea. Now, if I could get them all without breaking anything. Oh god. Okay. Alright. I've managed, and everyone is still alive. Okay, so a lot of these are actually, queer. So, you know what? Let's just start with the ones that aren't, and then work our way to the queer ones. I think that's a good idea. So first and foremost, this is technically a standalone, but it belongs to a longer series, which I will not be collecting anytime soon. And that's Ice Trail, which belongs to the Fairy Tail series by Mashima Hiro. Fairy Tail was my first anime that I ever watched, apart from, I think, Sailor Moon, which I watched on YouTube and didn't know anything about. It has a special place with me, but I don't really necessarily enjoy where the story went a lot of the times, but Ice Trail follows Gray, who is my favorite character, hands down, of the entire series. And so this is the only Fairy Tail volume I will ever possess, and I'm proud to have it, and I love it. I don't recommend Fairy Tail for people who start new, by the way. Like, I don't. At all. Especially female fans. I don't recommend it. This will still always have a special place in my heart, so, you know, there's that. Another one that I have, which are the 2 that technically belong together, are Grimm's Mangas 1 and 2. These are short stories basically just based on Grimm's fairy tales, and they're really cute. I don't exactly remember where I got them from, but like I love how they're made up of. They're really nice. They're very slim. This is also something that happens a lot with manga. There's just not a lot to them unless you have like special editions or something, so that's always something you are going to have to deal with. And Yeah, now we only have the gay ones left. So let's go first for a non-fiction one. It's this one. This is about the story of the first gay marriage happening in Japan. And it's based on a collection of essays by the, LGBTQ plus activist who was the one to get married. His name is Nanasaki Ryousuke, and I believe the English translation of this is, I don't actually remember what the English translation of this is, but I'm going to leave it in the description box down below because I usually buy all my manga in German because I live in Germany, so sometimes I just don't really know the English and or Japanese translations because I just know the German names, I would say. But I do highly recommend this. Even if you still want to check out the essays, I recommend this because I love the way that it's made up of. I really love the I loved everything about this. I think it's a fantastic and very, very moving story. So if you want to get yourself a non-fiction manga, I recommend this one, or My Lesbian Experience with Loneliness, which is one I don't have yet, but I've read it, and it is also fantastic if you want to know more about the LGBTQ plus community, specifically in Japan. And now we only have 4 fiction left. The first one is, I married my best friends to shut my parents up. This is, it's amazing. It's basically just about this girl who is super tired, or woman, I have to say. A woman who is super tired of her parents, basically always telling her, oh my god, you have to find a husband. And so she's like, well, fuck that, I'm just gonna marry my best friend, who is a woman. And this is them. I love them. They're super cute. The entire thing it's very thin, it's a very short story, but it's really, really cute. So if you're looking for some cute stuff that's also kind of funny, I do recommend this, especially because the title is just chef's kiss, you know. Yes, and then I have another girls' love one, which is called Mädchen in all ihren Farben, so girls in all their colors, and this is basically just a bunch of short stories about different girls that get into relationships. As you can see here, I think those are all the protagonists that we have. You can also see them in the back. I loved it. It was really, really cute. I do believe, actually, that this is, like, an originally German one, but I'm not entirely sure anymore. No, it is not. Never mind. I'm speaking bullshit. It is not. But it's really, really cute. I really enjoyed it. It's just a bunch of really nice short stories where people fall in love. And all of them are girls. Great. I loved it. And the other 2 are boys' love. So first of all, we have Metalhead Next Door, which is basically just about a guy who gets to know a metalhead who lives next door. I am a massive metalhead myself, and I found this to be really, really cute. It's basically just about them getting to know each other and falling in love with each other, and some maybe ideas they have about each other that might not fully align with themselves, and so on and so forth. It's really cute, it's really adorable. If you're looking for a short story, this is also a good one. And last but not least, we have The Two Lions. This is also a boys' love one, but this is about 2 high schoolers, if I remember that correctly. No, not high school, uni, but university. But they also fall in love. This one had a lot of drama, specifically in the last part, that I don't fully remember why it was there in the first place, but like, I guess it's fine. You know, sometimes plot doesn't have to make sense. Sometimes you just have to vibe with it. This is definitely one of those, because I remember someone getting beat up and it was so confusing. But I still enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was really cute as well, and I really love the cover. I don't know why, but I love the colors that come with it. So, yeah. Those are the standalones. Do you see the problem at this point? Those are just the standalones. We're gonna talk about the series in just a second. Do you see the problem yet? Yeah? Fantastic. Alright, I'll be right back because my battery is doing some weird things, and I'm gonna charge this camera before I get into the series that I finished reading and collecting. Okay, I'm back. Everything is great. So, let's talk about the series that I have both completed reading as well as completed collecting. There's a lot. Let's get into it. So, the first one that I have here is the first volume of A Silent Voice, which I believe the Japanese title is Koe no Katachi. I think. It sure is. Some people might know this because there's actually a movie that was made, and that movie, I would argue, is pretty damn successful. There's 7 volumes in total of this manga, which is a surprisingly low number, and probably also the reason why I have the entire thing. Again, I need to reiterate, if you want to collect manga, make sure you either know when to stop or that you just have a lot of space, because otherwise things are not going to go well. So, A Silent Voice is about Shoya, who is this guy right there, who in middle grade gets to know a deaf girl. Her name is Shoko, and she's adorable. I love her very much. However, he partakes in bullying her quite relentlessly, until the point where Shoko's mother goes to the school and essentially is just like, you know, my daughter's being bullied, this is not okay, what the hell is happening? And Shoya is made to take the entire fall for it, even though the entire class, as well as the teacher, which is one of the most disgusting things I've ever read, quite happily partook in the entire bullying situation. The entire story itself, like the main gist of the story, takes place a few years after that, where Shoko and Shoya, as you might have guessed, surprisingly meet again when they're, I think, it's either university or college, one of the two, but they're definitely older, and we start talking about what bullying does to a person and how being a social outcast, whether or not it's something that you quote-unquote deserved, how that deals with your life. I personally enjoyed the story. I think it's a little bit of a tricky one because some people like to argue that Shoya gets completely forgiven and the story is basically about forgiving a person who bullied you, which I don't necessarily think is true, but as someone who has also been bullied in school and who understands that sometimes things are not exactly as black and white as you might like them to be, I do understand being a bit more careful around stories like these, because they can very easily veer into the territory of, well, he was just a kid, he didn't know any better, so maybe we should just forgive him. I personally think that the story held a lot of grace for everyone involved, including, yes, Shoya, because he was a child, but also because he was failed by everyone around him repeatedly as well, while still talking about the fact that what he did was not okay in any capacity, which I did like. So, A Silent Voice is one of those slightly more difficult stories where I understand people not liking it, I also very much understand people who do like it, and depending on what's more important to you, you might or might not enjoy this story. So, I'm just putting that out there. It's a bit more complicated than it seems. It's definitely not a bully/bullied romance, especially because the romance action is very much subdued and is definitely not the focus of this work. So if that's what you're expecting going into this, I can reassure you that's not really what happens. Anything beyond that is a bit more complicated, and I do recommend watching the movie and or trying the manga if this sounded interesting to you and you want to see what exactly I mean by them giving it a bit more grace. But this is one of my completed manga series. There's only a few more coming. So the next one, I actually got all of the volumes up because it's just 3, and that is Night and Sea. And I look at them, they're so pretty. So this is about 2 girls who meet, I do believe it's high school. And the way that they meet is one of them, it's our lovely baby here. Her name is Aya, and Aya is a really big fan of swimming, but she likes to do it on her own because she's not necessarily a big fan of, like, swimming teams or anything like that. She just wants to swim. And Tsukiko, who moves new to her school, is someone who always lives through life a bit more mutedly. She doesn't really, like, there's not a lot going on in her life that excites her, and she doesn't really know what to do with herself. But the second she meets Aya, things change. This series is... it's not obvious in its queerness, but I personally think that this is a wonderful 3-volume queer series about two girls who get to know each other in school and who get to hang out with each other and who get to try and understand each other. It's very subtle in what it's doing. There's also not necessarily a lot going on. They keep talking about this thing where Tsukiko is basically always set as this... That's my dog. Let's just ignore that for a second. Tsukiko is always said as this moon princess, which is very funny because part of her name, Tsuki, means moon in Japanese. And one thing that I really love about this manga, I can't really show you everything, but I love the drawings of this manga so incredibly much. They are so gorgeous. I love it. So this is one of those series that doesn't really have a lot going on story-wise, but if you like to feel yourself captured by something that's like slightly more whimsical and slightly more gentle on the soul, I do recommend Night and Sea. It was fantastic. It's just 3 volumes, which again, for a completed manga series, is a surprisingly low count. I don't really know that many manga series that are completed under at least 7 volumes. This is one of them. So if you're looking for something that's a bit shorter and that's a bit softer and a bit more whimsical, I highly recommend Night and Sea because it's fantastic and I love it very, very much. Also, it's just really, really pretty, okay? Like, it's pretty. That's what got me. That's what got me. It was gorgeous. I saw the title and I saw the pretty cover and I was like, this is the one that I want, and then it was good. So This is how they get you. This is how they get you. Alright, let's talk about the next one that's also just 3 volumes, and that is this one, which is Ama and Yuki, the Wolf Children, or Wolf Children, and this is the accompanying 3 manga volume series to one of my favorite animated movies of all time. It's just called Wolf Children, and it's basically about this woman. This is her. She's fantastic. I love her so much. She's so incredibly sweet. And she meets a man who turns out to be a wolf shifter, and they have 2 children together, Ama and Yuki. These 2. Aren't they adorable? Unfortunately, her husband dies before the children grow up much, and since he was a wolf shifter, his children also inherit the ability to shift, which is why they have these cute little ears on the cover. They're so adorable. She's just a human being. She's just a normal person, and she's very much overwhelmed by this, especially because, like, there's these instances where she doesn't really know if she should take her children to a children's hospital or to a vet when something happens with them, because she never really got to talk much about the physiological differences with her husband before he died. And she moves away with her children to give them a better life in the countryside instead of in the city. And the entire series is basically just this heartwarming story about what it means to be a mother, but also what it means to be a mother to children that quote-unquote aren't normal, but also the strength of community and finding yourself. And it's just... it's so sweet. It is so sweet. I highly recommend this. It's going to make you feel good. It's going to make you cry. It's fantastic. I love it so, so, so much. I highly recommend the movie. I highly recommend the manga. Please, just give it a chance, okay? It's fantastic. It's great. It's wonderful. Also, it's just 3 volumes. I keep saying this, but this is really important, guys, okay? So the next one is one of the first ones that I completely collected, and it's Blast of Tempest, or Zetsu in a Tempest, if you want to take the Japanese title. This is a 10-volume series. This is the first one, and I really love how beautiful it is. And it's a very loosely based retelling of The Tempest by William Shakespeare, actually. It's about these 2 guys, and this wonderful guy, he has a sister, or had a sister, and this sister died, which is kind of the catalyst to the entire story. It's kind of where everything starts going, because he is convinced that he has to find out how his sister died, and he has to find who's responsible for it, and his best friend, Yoshino, was left behind when Mahito tried to, you know, go out there and try to find out what killed his sister. with Mahito not knowing that Yoshino might be more connected to his sister than he ever knew. But this is not the only thing that happens. There's magic in the background, there's a weird order of sorcerers in the background. There's a lot of things happening in this series. I do like it. There's also an anime for it, so if you want to check it out and you're not the biggest fan of reading or not the biggest fan of manga, I do recommend checking out the anime. It's been a few years since I last watched it, but I remember really liking it when I did. Fun fact, or well, not fun fact, but slight tip. If you are into anime and manga and you remember an anime or manga that you loved years ago, be very careful if you want to pick it up again. Because chances are your taste changed, and big chances are you hate it now. Totally not speaking from experience, which is why I just don't want to touch it again, you know? I want to retain my memories, which are good memories. We're gonna leave it at that. And this is not the last one, but it's the second to last one. And I have this series complete, but there's, I think, two like short stories for the end of it, so I have read the entire main story, but there's still 2 volumes that I'm technically missing, but that I don't necessarily need, and that is The Gender of Mona Lisa. I have complicated feelings about this series. I do still want to keep it because I think that the concept itself is very interesting, but I think that the author fell into a lot of traps considering it. Some of which got talked about in the series, some of which didn't, which was a little bit disappointing to me, and overall, it's a very clumsy idea, I would say. Because what The Gender of Mona Lisa is about is we are currently in this series, which I believe the main story has 8 volumes of. We are living in a society where children do not get assigned or do not assign themselves a gender until they are approximately 10 to 12 years of age. So every single child grows up just being a child with no gender, male, female, or otherwise, attached to them. But once they come of age, they typically start choosing their gender. And in this series, we follow the main character, Hinase, who still has yet to decide what gender they want to be, even though they are already 17, which is usually an age where every single character has chosen their gender and is happy with it. Hinase also has 2 best friends, a male friend and a female friend. Both of them at the beginning of the first volume proclaim their love for Hinase, romantic love that is, not just platonic love, and Hinase is now tasked not only with the difficulty of not really knowing what their gender is supposed to be, in a society that is curiously strictly gendered, despite, you know, living in a society where gender is not supposed to matter for the first years of your entire existence. That's one of my critique points I have, actually. But also with the fact that they don't really know which gender to choose, based on the fact that they don't really know whom to choose romantically. The author herself, if I remember that correctly, also admitted that the reason she wrote the story the way that she did was because at first she literally just wanted to have a love triangle situation happening between someone and their 2 best friends. But because they wanted to make one of the friends male and one of the friends female, they started thinking of the slightly more advanced idea of, you know, having the main character not really have a gender as of right now. The reason I'm a little bit uncomfortable with the entire premise phrased like this is that you'd think a society like that is a little less on the gender stereotypes, but it very much still remains there. Hinase is also like, the way that people deal with Hinase makes it seem like the whole not having a gender is genuinely supposed to be a phase that you grow out of, which I find very uncomfortable thinking about a lot of people who are non-binary or genderqueer or just don't really know what to do with their gender, but it's definitely not binary and it's definitely not the gender that they were assigned to. And it felt like the book was very conveniently trying to tell you that, well, you know, everyone grows up genderless, which is also kind of a lie, because it does feel like the adults in this book are very much pushing some sort of gender agenda onto their children. It was a little bit of a mess. I feel like if the author hadn't done this on a whim, but instead had tried to, like, convey the idea of a genderless society where people nonetheless can choose what gender they want to have in their bodies, which, by the way, after that, their bodies just naturally start producing the right amount of hormones. Whack. It was a little bit funny. Also, genderless people, the older they get, the more likely they are to commit suicide, and it's never fully explored if that is because of society's expectations of them, or because being genderless means you're suicidal. Weird equations were going on in this series, and I wasn't the biggest fan of it. So I I think the series was interesting in the way that it tried to look at gender, and there were also some very intriguing conversations to be had, specifically when it came to the whole, well, if Hinase chooses to be a boy, is their male friend still going to be in love with them, and their male and female friend respectively having to live through that and having to negotiate that with each other and be like, well, do I love Hinase because Hinase could be a woman for me as a man, or do I love Hinase because I just love them, and it doesn't really matter what gender Hinase might be. So I liked some of those discussions that came later on, especially because there was some canonically gay or just queer in general characters in the series as well. I still think that parts of it read very iffy and that the entire concept sounded a lot cooler than it was. Also, I was very uncomfortable with how the two friends of Hinase proclaimed their love for them at the beginning. It was very weird because they were basically like, I can make you a girl, no, I can make you a boy, and I was like, I don't feel like this is how it should be working. So I would say it's a little bit, not necessarily of a problematic fav, but it's definitely a series that has some issues that it, in my opinion, does not fully address. Especially jarring because of how it starts out to be. So if you want to pick this up, bear that in mind, I would say. It's a little bit odd. Maybe you might feel comforted by some of the things that happen in there. I, as a queer person, had some moments that made me go, oh yeah, this is interesting, this is really cool. And as I said, the general concept is also really nice. It's just that the execution was slightly lacking every once in a while. Let's just say it like that. Alright. And now we get to the last completed series that I have, and I'm just going to hold up the first box set of this, and that is Assassination Classroom. It is beautifully colorful, and every single volume looks like this, because there's a face on it. Because Assassination Classroom, which is a work both anime as well as manga. The anime, by the way, is a fantastic adaptation that is basically one-on-one what happens in the manga. So again, if you're not a manga person, I still recommend you check out the anime because it is fantastic. But Assassination Classroom is basically about this middle school that has a very uncomfortable tradition, I would say, that makes every other student work harder, which is there's a so-called E-class, and everyone who is a loser or who cannot manage to keep up with the very high stress situation that this school is, because it's insane, truly, everyone who cannot keep up with that or who acts out or anything like that gets put into E-class, and if you graduate from E-class, your life sucks, basically, right? Like, you don't get good jobs, you don't get nice perks, you just suck, right? However, in the year that this is taking place in, E-class is visited by a very special person. An alien who destroyed the moon and is now basically telling everyone that he will blow up the Earth too in a year's time. But until that time, he wants to be a teacher. Yes, you heard that right. And so he basically takes over E-class and tries to teach them things. Among other things, how to trust in themselves and how to have better skill sets that will help them later on in life. It's a very funny and action-packed series. It's also incredibly heartwarming. I've read the manga 3 times, I've watched the anime 2 times, I've cried every single time. Because what these students are basically supposed to be doing is, while they are supposed to be learning from this octopus. Yeah, he looks like a yellow octopus. It's fantastic. I don't think you can see him on here anywhere. Oh yeah, you can. There he is. That's Koro-sensei. While they are supposed to be learning from Koro-sensei, as they call him, they are also supposed to train to kill him, because he has decided that these children in that class are the only ones allowed to kill him before he manages to blow up Earth. That's it, that's the storyline. It's fantastic. I love this manga, I love this series to pieces. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. It's so much fun. So, it also looks very pretty on your shelves. There's 21 volumes of this though, if I remember that correctly. So do with that whatever you will. I did tell you we were going to get into the longer series sooner rather than later. So, yes. Those are the completed series that I have fully on my shelves. Let's very quickly talk about the ones that are complete but that I don't own entirely. So, starting with the one that is probably, yep, the most harmless, we have Bloom Into You. Ta-da! I do believe this series has 7 or 8 volumes, and it is a girls' love series about these two characters who are schoolmates, essentially, and are in the same club, and one of them starts catching feelings for the other, and obviously has to try and navigate, like, what does it mean that I'm in love with a girl? What does it mean that I feel so much for a friend, for someone who's just supposed to be a friend? What is going on here? It also has one of the best, in my opinion, depictions of asexuality I've ever seen in my entire life, so that is also something you can look forward to when it comes to the series. Quick disclaimer again, this is a romance series. Like, it is entirely romance. There's not a lot of subplots, it's just romance. So if that's not your thing, I don't recommend you start with this one, but I do recommend you do if that just sounds like a nice treat you would like to give yourself. I highly recommend Bloom Into You. It is a fantastic series with a beautiful relationship, and they're so cute. Look at them. Look at my babies. They're so adorable. Trauma. Let's go back to Trauma. This is the first volume in the Schülerin, the girl from the other side, or in German, das fremde Mädchen, which basically just means the strange lady, the strange girl. This is I think there's also 8 or 10 volumes. I currently have 3. They're really big, and they're entirely, like, they are in black and white like every manga, but they have a lot of increasingly black panels, because what this series is about is that there's, one part of the world is essentially sectioned off from the other, because the strangers, like this big creature, live in there. And if a stranger touches you as a normal person, you start turning into a stranger. You also start losing all of your memories from when you were an actual person, and you have to emigrate to that side of the world and basically live cordoned off from all of humanity. Unless you're Shiva, my little baby. She, for some reason, lives on the side of the strangers with this guy who is just called the Doctor, because again, he doesn't remember anything about his life, and he also doesn't remember his name. And he's trying to raise Shiva, and it's very heartbreaking. I cried so many times reading this series, but I highly recommend it. It's deeply unsettling. It never fully explains itself, which I personally really enjoy because I love me some tasty mystery in there as well. It's never fully explained, you don't really know what's going on. But it's so heartwarming how the Doctor tries to take care of Shiva without touching her, without turning her into a stranger, while still fearing that it might happen at some point. So, if you would like to get your heart broken, I recommend The Girl from the Other Side. Just go for it. You're gonna cry and you're gonna love it. Probably. Similarly, this is an older classic. I don't know how long this series has been around, but it's been a while. We also have an anime. The anime is a fantastic adaptation. It just stops right when things get super interesting in the manga. And I'm obviously talking about Pandora Hearts. This is a 25-volume series, and I currently possess, I think, 16? Of them, if I remember that correctly, something along those lines. And it's basically about this world. It's very, very much inspired by Alice in Wonderland, in case you were wondering. And it's about this little guy, his name is Oz, and he, for some reason, at some point in his life, gets thrown into the so-called abyss because of the crime, and I repeat, almost verbatim of what's happening in the series, the crime of being born. The Abyss is usually a place that is basically kept for people who have committed heinous crimes, and so obviously Oz is very confused as to why he ends up in there, and he manages to break out with the help of Alice, whom, let's see if I can find her here. Where's my baby? Well, that's the wrong Alice. he manages to break out with her, which is fantastic. Oh, there she is. Look at her. That's Alice. That's my lovely baby. He manages to break out of the abyss, but it has been a few years, actually, which he didn't realize. And so now some of the people he's known when he was a child are grown adults, and he doesn't really know how to cope with this. And there's a lot of shit happening, and I don't want to spoil anymore because the mind-breaking twists in this series are basically one of the best parts of it. I will forever love this series. As I said, the anime is really good if you want to start getting into the series, but it does cut off right where the manga gets really interesting, so you're spared approximately 15 of the 20 twists that happen within this series. So, I recommend starting with the anime if you want to, and then go to the manga like every other one of our poor souls who are still waiting for a second season. We haven't given up hope, okay? We kind of have, but it's fine. And last but not least, and I've talked about the series before, and I love it so much, last but certainly not least of the finished, but I don't own all the volumes yet, Dorohedoro! This series is not for the faint of heart because there's a lot of gore, there's a lot of horror. It's basically about this world where there's two separate realities, I would say. One is the normal reality where all of the wizards live, and the other one is called the Hole, which is the place where everyone lives who gets experimented on by the wizards. And our main character, Kaimon, got turned into you can see it like a little bit here, but he got turned into a lizard man, and he doesn't know who did it, and he doesn't know what happened, and he doesn't know who he is. So he's trying to look for the magician who did that to him, with the help of Nikaido, who is a wonderful woman who lives in the hole, and who also makes the best gyoza in the world. Also, I love her. That's basically the premise of this, and everything else gets crazier. Like, legitimately. There's also an anime for this one, and it's a really good adaptation as well, in my opinion. It does only have 12 episodes, if I remember that correctly. And at least in my country, it's on Netflix. So if you want to watch it, I'd recommend it. There's a lot of gore, and it's crazy. Do with that whatever you will. I don't know how to describe the series without making it sound even more insane than it already is. So we're just gonna stop right there. This is a because it looks so thick, I know, right? It's beautiful. This is a collector's edition that only exists in German. The English ones are all singular volumes. The German ones are 3 or 2 volumes a piece. And I do believe there is 13 or 14 of these big boys to collect, and I currently have 4, so we're getting there. Remember when I told you that I need a lot of space? I think am I proving my point yet? I feel like I'm proving my point. Alright. And now, to the last group. I'm gonna try and keep this like a little shorter. Let's get into all the ones that I have that aren't completed and that I don't own completely. Starting off with some that are a bit more relaxed, I would say. So first of all, we have Breath of Flowers by Kali. This, if I remember correctly, is actually like not an original Japanese one. Let me look this up real quick. Yes, this is actually a French manga, and it's about this lovely girl. Her name is Azami, and she is in love with this very sporty boy, who turns out not to be a boy, because he's actually a girl, because she is actually a lesbian. It's a really, the first volume was really fun, and I don't know if the other volumes are out yet. I don't know how many volumes there are, but I enjoyed the first volume. I remember that much. I don't remember much else of it, because it's been a while since I read it, so we're just gonna put this aside. A similar thing is Our Days at Seagull Village, but this is actually, again, a Japanese manga, and this is about a wonderful woman with her daughter, and the person who starts living with them on the island, and did not know she was as much into women as she finds out she is. I do believe this one is also a shorter one. I think there's 2 other volumes out, but I don't know if that means the manga is finished. I also don't know if I will fully be collecting this because I found it a little bit weird at times. Like, there's a lot of boobs involved. And, like, I'm not saying that women cannot be into boobs, but I am saying that sometimes it felt a little bit dehumanizing. So I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to keep this one, and I'm not entirely sure if I can recommend it, but I have it, so we'll see what happens. Next, Given! I'm pretty sure a lot of people know about Given. This is a boys love manga. There's also an anime. The anime is fantastic. I highly recommend it because you can actually hear the music. That's like the one thing about music manga that is very hard, as well as action manga. When you don't see the action or hear the music, it gets a little bit depressing. So I do recommend the anime as well, at least if you want to hear some of the music. And it's basically about Uenoyama, this guy, right there, who falls in love with one of his fellow students and doesn't really know what to do with this, but he does know that he has a band and he loves that band, and this guy whom he falls in love with, Mafuyu, works pretty decently well in that band as well. And so now there's 4 guys. Spoiler alert, all of them are gay. It's great, it's fantastic. I do very much enjoy it. It gets very emotional at times. And there's a lot of instances of relationships that don't fully work out, or relationships that just need a lot more, like, people talking to each other. So I recommend it. It's fantastic. It's great. It's a wonderful experience, both the manga and the anime. I think there's currently 6 or 7 volumes out, and I currently have 4. So I'm close to catching up. I don't know if this thing is ever going to get finished. Listen, that's a question we don't ask ourselves when it comes to manga series, okay? Right, next one! I only have 2 volumes of this one so far, but I do want to collect more of it, and I'm pretty sure that a lot of people know this name. Jujutsu Kaisen! So this is basically just about a world where specific people learn how to deal with evil ghosts. Right. And our main character, Itadori Yuji, basically starts being able to witness these, or not necessarily starts being able to witness these, but he gets dragged into this after his grandpa dies, and he accidentally swallows a finger. Just go with it, okay? Like, some plots in anime and manga are so genuinely insane that you just need to learn to let go. And just go with whatever they're throwing at you, okay? Because I trust you, it gets weirder. And I trust me again, there's weirder anime out there than anything you've ever seen. There's also weirder manga out there than anything you've ever seen. Just believe me, okay? Fantastic. I have a little bit of a struggle with this manga because I started with the anime first, which is fantastic, by the way, and it's really hard reading this without being able to see the action scenes because I don't know what's going on. I'm really bad with this when it comes to very action-prone manga, but I still want to collect it because I love so many of the characters, and I really want to know where the series is going because I know there's a lot of heartbreak ahead of me. Alright, speaking of heartbreak... Let's talk about To Your Eternity. So, this one is a fantasy series by the same author of A Silent Voice, but this one is not finished, at least not that I know. And there's, I think, 17 volumes out right now. I have 10, so, you know, halfway there. To Your Eternity is about this being that gets dropped onto our Earth, and it is supposed to learn how to imitate everything on Earth, including life. And it can only imitate things if it retains a certain stimulus from it. Like, for example, if you poke it with a stick and it hurts, it can recapture that and then turn into a stick or let a stick materialize out of itself. It can also imitate humans, if the humans meant something to it, and if the humans are dead. I think you know where I'm going with this. This is one of the most harrowing series I have ever read. I kid you not, I was crying in the first volume. The first volume made me cry. I love this series. I recommend it to anyone and everyone who wants to read it. You are going to cry. You're going to be devastated. It is horrific. It is fantastic. It's beautiful. It's wonderful. The entire concept of eternity, of immortality, of life and death, of love, even when you know that that love is going to get taken away from you. This series, y'all. There's an anime for it, and I watched the first season after reading, I think, the first 7 volumes of the manga, and I was so scared of continuing on with it after a certain point because I knew what was coming. It didn't matter that I knew. I was on the floor, I was sobbing my eyes out. So, I recommend it. Be careful, okay? Like, To Your Eternity is not for the weak. It is not. Shout out, though, to the fact that my first volume has a dust jacket, which I've never seen before. Look at how gorgeous this is. Like, what the hell? What the fuck? The entire series is this beautiful. So, like, it's just worth it for the prettiness alone. But you're going to cry. Just look at my child. What? How are you not supposed to want to hug him and keep him safe? You can't, but you want to. It's great though. I love it. Another series that I really, really love, and this is also one that I keep recommending to people, is Akatsuki no Yona, or Yona of the Dawn. So this is a very, very long series. We have, I think, currently over 35 volumes. I currently possess not even 20, so we're slowly getting there. And it's basically about Yona, who is a princess. This is her. She's lovely. I love her so much. And she has to flee her kingdom because of circumstances that I don't want to fully spoil right now. And she goes on a quest to find the so-called 4 dragons, who are basically reincarnated people whom's first incarnation, I would say, were given powers by the 4 dragons of the sky, and she wants to find the 4 dragons in order to basically protect herself and save herself. And on the journey there, she also learns a lot more about the kingdom that she used to live in, and she grows incredibly much as a person. And I love this series so much. I love the characters so much. I love the relationships so much. I love Yona as a main character so much because she's one of those characters, yes, she goes through an incredible amount of growth throughout the series, but she does so in a way that makes me think if Yona, the current Yona, would experience or, like, you know, meet the Yona of the first volume, she would just give her younger self a hug. She doesn't hate her younger self for being very much privileged and for being, you know, not very knowledgeable about what her country is going through. She just feels compassion, and her compassion is what makes her, in my opinion, one of the best protagonists I've ever read. I love this series so much. I'm gonna stop talking about it right now because I could go on a rant for hours about how much I love this series, and we don't have time for that right now because we still have a few manga to go through. Alright, next one. Let's go for this one. This is Witch Hat Atelier, or Atelier of Witch Hat, and it's beautiful, okay? Like, the drawings are stunning. Everything about this manga is absolute and utter beauty. I love it so much. And it's basically about this world where people can do magic, and in order to do magic you have to be an apprentice at a witch hat atelier. And our main character, Coco, that's her. She's lovely. I love her so much. She's my child. She's my baby. She wants to learn magic, but she wasn't born into a family that traditionally supplies these ateliers with magicians, and so she doesn't really know how to go about this, but she really, really wants to learn magic. And of course, she gets granted her wish, and she gets introduced into the wonderful and sometimes very dangerous life of magic and magicians and everything. And this entire series is basically about her journey with that, but it's also about some things happening in the shadows of that magical society that are maybe not exactly as great. I love the world building in this series so much. I love how beautiful it is. It's so gorgeous. I love the characters. I love the work that they do with each other and how they form their friendships and everything. It's just, I recommend this manga to basically everyone. Please, 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 please join us. Please read Witch Hat Atelier, I'm begging you. It's such a good series. Trust me, please. If there's one series you pick up from this, you know what, no, I can't really choose, but this is definitely one of the ones that I fully recommend you just pick up if you haven't heard about it yet, because it's just so good. And to stay like slightly with the magical theme again, we also have the first volume of Magus of the Library. This one is also so pretty. Like, look at this. This one is about a young boy. This is my little darling. And he also wants to become a magician. And, you know, life is a little bit hard when people want to become magicians and they can't manage to do so. But he also sets out on a journey, much like Coco, to become a magician and to get to know the world. And he obviously also gets to travel to the library, because books play a very important role in this series, actually. So as someone who loves books, it was perfect. It's wonderful. I love the series very much. I think it's so pretty. And I don't think a lot of people have actually heard of this series. So, here. This one. Yeah, it's good. I recommend it. Okay, we have 3 left. 4, actually. So we're almost at the end. Next one is one that I also recommend everyone pick up, and it is Apothecary Diaries. This series is so good. The anime is currently coming to an end, which is incredibly saddening, and I hope that we get a second season. I really want it so badly. But we basically follow Mao Mao, her, my lovely baby darling, who is the apprentice of an apothecary, or she's basically an apothecary herself. It's just that, you know, she's a woman, and so she can't really have her own apothecary and everything. But she accidentally gets captured while trying to look for herbs and gets put into, the closed-off palace where the concubines of the emperor reside. And while she's living there as a, you know, washerwoman, things happen where she basically accidentally reveals to someone in power, Jinchi, my baby darling, that she can read and write, and that she's actually not just a washerwoman, but a very educated young woman who knows a lot about herbs and treatments and also poisons. And so she becomes the poison tester for one of the concubines in this inner palace, in this hidden off place of the world. The way this series deals specifically with women's issues at a time where women were systematically oppressed, as well as the class divide that is talked about in this series, and the way that the female character gets to interact with so many other female characters and gets to empathize with them, even when they're not supposed to be empathized with, is so incredibly stunning to me. I love this series for its commentary and for its funny. There's a lot of humor in this as well. It's really, really funny. But the commentary on the devastating social differences in class as well as in gender are reinforced over and over again, and it's just so good. Also, Mao Mao and Jinchi are... they're fantastic, they're amazing. So I highly recommend you pick up the series. The anime is a fantastic adaptation. Again, it's basically just the panels one-on-one of the manga. So whichever you pick up, I hope you pick up one of the two, because this series deserves all the love you can give it. Now you know what, let's go back to this one. This is Shadow's House, and I think there's currently 4 volumes out, and I have 2 of them. This is what they look like, and it's basically about this massive house that is inhabited entirely by shadows, of which this lovely lady, Kate, is one of them. They are the aristocrats of this place. However, because they are just shadows, they are entirely unable to emote with their faces, and so they employ their puppets, or just normal humans, who are supposed to look almost exactly like them, and are supposed to at some point learn to be the shadows' faces, by basically making the facial expressions a shadow is unable to express, because their face is basically just a black slate. This is Emiliko, and she's obviously working for Kate, and we basically follow their journey, where Emiliko learns how to become her mistress's face, but where they also uncover that there's maybe a little bit more happening in the Shadow House than they thought previously. There's also an anime for this. I love the anime to pieces. It is incredibly beautiful, and it's not explicitly queer, but I think there's something very, very lesbian about being so in tune with another person that you can act as their face because you know what facial expression they would be making if they had a face you could look at. Maybe that's just my interpretation, but look at these two and tell me you don't see it. Just... Alright, thank you very much for listening. I do really like this series, and I'm really excited to see where it's going. Specifically after the story of the manga is done. Not the manga, the anime. There we go. Right, second to last one. Made in Abyss. So this one I recommend for people who don't mind horror and gore, but with cute people. Made in Abyss is basically about this world where a massive abyss has spawned somewhere in the world that goes down deeper than a human mind can logistically fathom. And our main character, Riko, is a 12-year-old girl. Yes, she's 12. No, the series is still horrific. Who decides to go on a journey to go down into the abyss because her mother allegedly sent a letter up there telling her that she's waiting for her at the end of the abyss. Now you have to know, if you go down into the abyss, there's several parts that you go through essentially, and the deeper you go, the harder it is to get back up, because going down is not the problem, going back up is. For instance, you might feel dizzy, you might feel nauseous, you might vomit blood, you might lose all of your senses, or you might just die. So what basically happens is that Riko is going on this journey knowing that she will never return to the surface ever again. And the thing that I love about Made in Abyss so much is that it's one of those Explorer series, right? But instead of having the main character just be very excited all the time and basically be like, oh yeah, I'm not going to be worried about any of this. This is going to be fine. This is going to be fun. This is going to be great. The main character, as well as everyone else in the series, is intimately aware of the fact that Riko is not coming back. Ever. And that's something that I've been missing from some, like, exploration series, especially if we go a little bit more into the shonen area. This is not a shonen. This is a seinen, by the way, even though the characters are very young. And I know why. I do believe the anime is for 16 plus, at least in Germany. I know why. I know why. If you have seen the anime, the only thing I'm going to say is episode 9. If you haven't seen the anime, go watch it and come back to this video when you've seen episode 9. You will know what I'm talking about. This is something that I miss from so many adventure series, is the deep and profound knowledge that nothing is ever going to be the same. Because, in this case, the character is never coming back, period. Like, it doesn't matter what's happening, the character is not coming back. They will either die on the journey, or they will just remain on the journey, and they will not return. Ever. There's currently, I think, 11 or 12 volumes out of the series, and I own 10, so we're getting there. I don't recommend this for the faint of heart. Like, I don't. I recommend it. But just know that you're getting into there's a lot of things happening. I think that's the best I can say about Made in Abyss. And now, let's get to my current pride and joy of my collection. This is also one of the few manga series that I have, or I'm starting to collect in English. And those are the first 11 volumes of Chainsaw Man! I have them in this really, really awesome box set. Hold up. You need to look at my darling. That's Makima. I love her so much. And this is what they look like. These are the first 11 volumes, and I'm pretty sure the manga is definitely not finished with those, and I do think that there's more volumes out already. I'm definitely going to keep collecting them in English then, because I don't like switching languages in between my manga. But this series is also not for the faint of heart, so it's probably a good thing that we ended with this after Made in Abyss. But Chainsaw Man, let me get one volume out so I can hold it up, because otherwise my hand is gonna die. Chainsaw Man is about Denji, who lives in a world where devils, or so-called devils, who are basically representations of a lot of fears that people have, and can take on various forms, like the Bat Demon, the Gun Demon, the Chainsaw Demon, the Katana Demon. There's a lot. There's so many. But they take on these forms and they prey on human beings. And so an agency has been called into existence, essentially, who try to hunt down devils and kill them if they harm humans. Denji, our protagonist, at some point dies and only gets resurrected because a little demon. Hold up. You need to see. If you see one thing in your life, it needs to be Pochita. There she is! Look at her! She's so cute! He gets resurrected because he basically gains the heart of the chainsaw devil, Pochita, and now he turns into Chainsaw Man! Look at him! Yeah, there's chainsaws coming out of him. Just go with it. And he gets to be part of this agency because he gets recruited by Makima. Pretty sure she's on one cover here. There she is! If Girl Boss had a face, it would be her. She's a horrible person, and I love her very much. Genuinely horrible person, though. And the thing that I love so much about Chainsaw Man is that it really has this, like, increasingly fucked up found family vibe. And not necessarily in the fun way, in the way of, like, you know, oh, these people are going to support me, but just in the way of, these are the only people I know are either never going to die, or they're going to die at the exact same time as I am, so these are the only people I feel safe with. This series is fucked up. I'm pretty sure it's also 16 plus, at least in Germany, and for very good reasons. But I love it so much. So if you love completely fucked up characters living in a fucked up world and doing fucked up things, I recommend Chainsaw Man, especially for the action. There's also an anime out which adapted, I think, the first 4 to 5 volumes of the manga. I think 4 is where they stopped. It's a fantastic adaptation. I love the animations and I love the music, especially the opening and ending. Chef's kiss. So if you want to start this series and you, like me, struggle a bit more with reading action scenes, I do recommend at least starting with the anime so you can get used to what's happening, what characters are we talking about, what the hell is going on. That last question is not going to get answered, though. Like, it's just not going to get answered, so, you're going to have to live with that. But I love the series, I highly recommend it, I just want you to know what you're getting into. Because it's a lot. It might not be as crazy as something like Dorohedoro, which is purely because Dorohedoro is very special in its craziness, but it's very bloody. I think that's the best way to say it. Alright, so that was actually all of the manga that I currently own, that I'm currently collecting, and or have collected completely. Again, I would like to reiterate, if you get into this as a hobby, make sure that you have space, or that you know you're only going to get 1 or 2 series, because otherwise, things are going to get nasty. I personally love collecting manga. There's so many series that I still want to either completely collect and or start collecting, so I consistently have to try and hold myself back. It doesn't really work, so that's another warning. But I love manga so much. I love some of these series that I have collected here so incredibly much. I'm so excited to know more about them, and I'm really stoked that some of them might be receiving anime in the future, because it's just great, okay? It's fun and I love it. So let me know in the comments down below. Have you read and or watched any of these manga or their anime adaptations? And if so, which ones, and did you like them? And let me know in the comments down below if you have some favorite manga or anime series, franchises, maybe also mangaka or anime movie directors, anything like that. Let me know in the comments down below, because I love to talk about these things. Don't think that these are the only anime or manga that I have ever consumed in my entire life. That is not true. I just cannot buy everything I read. I'm very thankful that my library has a large manga collection, because otherwise I would be so done for. Like, already, I would be so done for. So, it's a very dangerous hobby. Almost more dangerous than collecting books. But, there's a lot of great things, like all these series, that I loved so much. So, as always, I hope that you have a nice reading experience yourself, and that you continue having a nice reading experience, maybe with some of the manga series I just talked about. Maybe not. That's on you, really. I hope that you choose something nice. As always. And as always, I will see you soon.